In these vlogs, I define my past to harden myself for what lies ahead. In that future, I've chosen arena fighting as my platform to expose systemic problems. Beware, this chapter is especially dark. Last time, you heard my time in Texas came to an end. I was now 16. My friends were bitter about me leaving, and I felt guilty. I knew I let them down, thinking we'd go to high school together. I knew what awaited me back in Seattle wasn't good. Beside this, my grandpa in Asia just died, with his last night's dream having been picking apples with me. This was my father figure, and my mom and I needed a way to at least see him. I had an estranged father in Seattle. He had his own traumatic childhood, a runaway at 14 from a violent house. We never lived with him because he mirrored that upbringing. This culture has so much toxic individuality that it destroys love and family from the beginning. My mom told me he confessed lying about what he stood for just to marry her. Capitalism hollows our identity into commodity, so that lying and cheating of any sort is just normal. In a market, nothing is sacred. It's incredible how it removed empathy from love itself. It's left me so alone that I'd waste away if I were to give up on love. I guess others are just fine slaving for money till death, which leaves me feeling a different species. That's alienation for you. He offered to help us get situated again, so we didn't refuse in our broke circumstance. When we arrived, I was reminded we weren't welcome by my younger relative who lived with him. I joined his friend group, upsetting the boy further. The eldest of the group hated my guts because I'd never push over a guy older than me. He was red once I rejected him, saying he could beat me up to my face. Some friend groups are truly nothing more than animal packs. We later met up at a school where he then tackled a Muslim kid. I wanted to attack him for this, but froze with the rest like a moron. When he was finished brutalizing, he had the rest of us fight each other for sport. This I took part in, beating two boys until I had to fight the brute himself. Once I was beat, he stepped on my skull hard as he could, sneering that he should kill me right then. When I got home, I saw that my mom and I's things were gone. When I asked for witness, a neighbor said they saw a man drag our things past them. A few months later, detectives uncovered it was the brute. This is the same idiot my relative would tell me was his real family, not me. I felt so unwanted that I couldn't bear the thought of public school again, opting for high school online, which I failed. I would lie in bed on my elbow all day, painting, scrolling YouTube. I didn't take serious the fact that it would wreck my bone growth. To this day, my collarbones, hair follicles, and face are all warped from that time. A symbolic scar forever. In my hate for the brute, I trained in the woods for weeks to fight him. I cleared land and constructed a walled fort as my safe place, which was then spitefully destroyed by my relative. Late at night, I would light campfires and just stare into them as my only peace. I was so fed up. It was bad enough my mom and I were displaced, living in a trailer on the property. My protest to my dad fell on deaf ears. The untidiness of his home was enough, no matter how often my mom and I cleaned it to earn our keep. I had enough. No more feeling worthless and unwanted. No more getting berated and dealing with my relative harming the youngest, who also lived there. I wrote a letter to a man nearby, exposing everything, infuriating my dad. He demanded I go to the man and recant it all, and once I didn't, my dad disowned me in a fury. Fearful of him and upset, I packed my things to go live under a bridge. Before, I'd walk tens of miles when upset, but I really wanted to go this time. Still, my conviction didn't last, and I returned to our trailer to hide. Finally, I had to restrain the relative from any more harm against the youngest. He left, threatening with what I best remember, getting his friends to come and deal with me. He made his friends fight me before, but this time, my mom and I received death threats from the brute. In shame, rage, and panic, I didn't want to involve the cops anymore. With an iron pipe, I waited at the foot of the hill leading down to us. The only ones to arrive were my relative and one of his friends. I charged up the hill to intimidate, and when I stopped, I was shoved by the friend, who asked me to fight. I struck him down with that pipe, fearing the brute was still coming. There was no brute that night, and I was spared jail out of the kindness of the friend. I can't imagine what I'd be if I hadn't been. My mom grew very ill with infection, and the violence didn't end. I woke up one night to my mom being dragged on bloody knees by that relative's mother. Shortly after, my mom and I finally saved enough to leave that pit of hell after over a year. These events made me a vegetable in my room thereafter. There was no point of engaging society at all, and my hope of befriending or finding love in high school was dashed before I could be given a chance. In the next video, I'll cover my own physical illness that resulted, leading to drastic mental changes and a longing for escape. Stay tuned. Test.